Great stuff. Thank you very much for that, Alice. It's another Saturday night here on 2GB. Thank you for your company. I'm Glenn Wheeler, and hopefully you'll be able to stay with us right through until midnight tonight. From now until 7 p.m, it's the Clubhouse, and of course we do that with thanks to our mates from 50 Up Club. Tonight, a particular focus too on the cost of electricity and why it is that we pay more for it now than ever before, even though we're using less. Cop that. And 50 Up Club members now have the opportunity to switch and save. We'll tell you how, so stay tuned. Janelle Bloom will join me from 7 till 8 o'clock with My Kitchen. And, of course, with Christmas preparations well and truly underway, I guess, in homes around the country, you've no doubt got a question or two for Bloomy. So she'll be joining us after 7 o'clock, and she'll have a few tips for us as well. I think she's also going to bring in some red-hot, easy, smart, clever Christmas pudding recipe. So listen up for that. And then, of course, from 8 o'clock, the highly acclaimed, multi-award-winning Wheeler through until midnight. Jam-packed with more bits and pieces than you can cram literally into a Christmas stocking. Righto, that's the game plan, generally speaking, between now and midnight tonight. Let's go with the Clubhouse.
Welcome to the Clubhouse on a Saturday night, thanks to 50upclub.com. And now, here's your host with the most, Glenn Wheeler.
6.5 minutes after the hour of 6, and thanks to Dan Mullins too for getting us all warmed up this afternoon. 50 Up Club, of course, is all about giving us, people who are over 50, a voice, because there's a lot of us out there, and if you haven't joined yet, make sure you do. Just jump on the website, 50upclub.com.au. Tell you a little bit more about that as we go through the night. Tonight we're going to shine a light on the cost of electricity. Not for long, though, because it's too bloody expensive to shine a light on it for too long. Why is it so expensive when it's been proven that we're actually using less electricity, right? Less electricity, and yet it's costing us more. The average household has consumed 7% less power since 2006, and yet the average power bill has gone up by more than 85% over the same period. From $890 a year to $1,660 a year. That's the average power bill. And I don't know about you, but I get confused with the whole electricity issue. There was a time back in the day when we all got electricity from the Sydney County Council. And I remember that was it. That was the entity. SCC, Sydney County Council. I think I had an uncle at the time, back in the day, who worked for the Sydney County Council. And that was it. I don't recall Mum and Dad ever having alternate suppliers or alternate billers or a choice even. It all just came through the Sydney County Council. And if there was a problem, like a blackout, then you called Sydney County Council and they got onto it and they got it fixed. So how and why did all that change? And I guess, moreover, why are we paying more? To put it simply, why are we paying more when we're actually using less? Well, the Grattan Institute have released a very detailed report into all of this. Very detailed indeed. 30-page report. Very comprehensive. Who or what is the Grattan Institute? I hear you asking. Fair question. It's. I suppose the best way to describe the Grattan Institute is it's one of those think tanks who take on projects because they want to, and they want to do some research and investigate what's going on, not because they're aligned to a particular lobby group or political party or whatever. In fact, they are non-partisan, I think, is probably the best way to describe them. Anyway, let's welcome Tony Wood, because Tony's the Energy Program Director for the Grattan Institute, and we'll get him to explain who they are and what they do, and hopefully why we're paying too much for electricity. G'day, Tony.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for your time tonight.
Okay.
First of all, let's just give us a bit of a brief on the Grattan Institute and what you guys are all about.
Well, you did a pretty good job to start with. We are, as you say, non-partisan, and we do independent research on major issues which are to do with broadly economic policy, areas including health, education and energy, trying to, as you say, shine a light on some of the issues that people may be concerned about, or that there's so many different commercial interests. Having someone independent have a look at these issues can sometimes be very useful and make input to policy.
Well, electricity, I think, is, and I've discussed this numerous times with people, certainly over the last few weeks in particular, last week especially, and I always say, look, I think that electricity has gone from being something that most of us understood because we did have a supplier, or it seemed like we only had a supplier. It was a very centrally controlled commodity. and yet things have changed. And I want to try and just keep this discussion with you as simple as possible so that we can all try and get a handle on what's going on. Am I right in saying that there are essentially now 4 groups involved in the chain? We've got the energy companies who actually make the electricity. We've got the businesses who set themselves up to sell the electricity, the state government, and then us, the humble consumer at the end of the line. Is that right? 4 players?
That's pretty close, yes.
Okay. So on the surface, again, keeping the conversation simple, if there's more supply than there is demand, you'd assume that the price would go down, wouldn't you?
In most areas of our lives, that would be exactly right.
So where's the speed hump in all of this?
Okay. This can be one simple example, and maybe there's an analogy. If you own a motor car, and many people do, and if you drive that motor car, you would normally expect to save a bit of money, right? You drive it less. If you drive it less, you pay less for your fuel. But you don't pay any less for your registration. You don't pay any less for your insurance. And if you've borrowed money from the bank, they don't charge you less on the loan just because you're using the car less. So for the middle part of the supply chain that gets the electricity from the companies that make the electricity, as you said, to our homes, the network that delivers it is largely a fixed cost independent of how much electricity we actually put through that system. So that's one of the core elements of this, because what that means is that whilst electricity demand was growing as it was mostly through the 1960s, 70s, and even until about 10 years ago, it wasn't such a big deal. No one noticed it because we were just getting more electricity out of the wires and poles. But as we started to change our lifestyles, and we've been doing this in a whole range of ways in our homes and businesses, we started for the first time to gradually use less electricity. And that means that the same amount of wires and poles, the cost of those has to be spread across a smaller volume of electricity. And when you think about that, that starts to explain one thing, and that's why the unit price or the price per unit of electricity is actually going up for that part of the supply chain.
But, okay, my simple mind suggests to me, though, that, you know, those wires and poles that you're referring to have been around for a long, long time. At what point have we paid for them and they're already, you know, an asset that have been covered?
Well, 2 things about that. One is we're always the companies that own those, and in the case of New South Wales, they are owned by the state government. In the case of Victoria, they're owned by the private sector. It doesn't really matter in the case of what I'm about to say. They have to spend a lot of money maintaining them. That is, they spend money on upgrading the transformers and the substations, the things we never have to worry about. And then at times they also have to do things to like improve the protection against bushfires, or even sometimes in the new suburbs they're putting the lines underground. So we're constantly expanding the network and we're constantly maintaining it. And so that's why we spend some money. But of course, the other thing happened about 7 or 8 years ago in New South Wales, where the state governments who own those businesses, we would suggest, were taking far too much money out of the business because they were looking for money for their state government finances, I guess. And what happened was they started to spend not enough money on maintaining the network. And what happened then was we had periods in the early part of this century, 10, 15 years ago, when we had blackouts, both in Queensland and New South Wales.
Yep.
And then we had a big catch-up. So what you saw is not enough money being spent and then a big catch-up. And the catch-up was the beginning of why all this extra money was being spent on the networks.
Okay, so we find ourselves in a situation then where we are now, where we're using less electricity, which is quite extraordinary in itself. And is that largely because we've become more savvy, or because we are just trying to save money, or is it a combination of all of the above?
It's a combination of all the above. In our homes, we went from using a cathode ray television, which many people, I'm sure, would still remember, through plasma TVs, which were very energy inefficient, and then to most people these days, if they buy a new television, would buy LED or LCD televisions, which are much more energy efficient than the old big plasma TV. So that's meant one reason why our electricity is going down. The second one is lighting. 20% of our electricity is used to light our homes and businesses. And as we've gone from the old incandescent light globes to the modern LED lights, again, 80% less electricity in those lights. So we're actually doing a whole lot of good stuff here by using less electricity. The problem is we're not saving as much as we would have thought. And the other big issue, which I'll refer to, and that is that in business, there's a result of a lot of changes in manufacturing. A lot of the things we used to do, which used to use a lot of electricity, we don't do anymore. A lot of energy-intensive manufacturing has gone. Now, what that means is that the network costs that were paid for by those businesses are now being spread across the rest of us. So it's a bit like if you stop using electricity, I pay some of the costs you used to pay. So in fact, not only do my costs not go down, they actually go up.
So
even though I'm using less.
Yeah, it's a real conundrum, isn't it? Because, people listening to us right now saying, well, this is ridiculous. We're using less, we're paying more. So can we categorise this into a word? Are we being ripped off or overcharged or gouged? Is there some kind of monopolistic control involved for this kind of pricing to go, well, what seems to be unchallenged?
Well, there is a monopolistic control. They're an independent regulator, and we've been critical of that regulator, certainly in the last 12 months or so and going back, because we would say these businesses, which, as I've just explained a little bit, they don't really take what most businesses would take, what's called volume risk. When the volume goes down, as you described before, in most businesses, the prices go down. In this business, they don't, for the reasons I've sort of explained. So that means that in exchange for not taking much risk, these businesses are supposed to get quite low returns. And in our view, the regulator was allowing them returns which were just far too high. Now, they're starting to change, but that's one of the reasons why we have been, I wouldn't sure I'd use the word ripped off, but we've certainly been paying more than we should have done. And hopefully, as the regulator gets on top of this, and they've been given some authority to do so, we should see some improvement in that area. Plus, of course, as I said, all that extra stuff that was built a few years ago, probably more than we even really needed to achieve very high levels of reliability. And no one likes the lights going out, but we all know 100% reliability would become exorbitantly expensive. We've also got to get control of that as well. Otherwise, these problems will continue.
So, on a more optimistic note then, to finish up, there is an answer, or at least a solution, hopefully, that may ultimately turn the situation around in relation to the cost of energy sometime down the track.
Well, I think a number of things. I think firstly, to get the regulator will hopefully start to get on top of this by controlling the profits these businesses are allowed to make, and we think that's going to start over the next year or so. And New South Wales will be the first state in Australia where that will actually happen.
Right.
The second thing is we've got to get our pricing right. At the moment, we don't really charge the right structure. We even though our network connection is largely a fixed cost, they charge us on what's called a variable basis, there's a consumption basis. And so what that means is if someone puts in a big air conditioner, they don't use much more electricity, but they certainly put a big load on the peak demand, and that means a big load on the network. And someone who puts in an air conditioner worth about $2,000, the rest of us cost about $7,000. So getting on top of the pricing is the third thing. And then finally, we have to decide, well, if we built too much in the past, what are we going to do about that? As a consumer, can continue to pay, or should the government or the businesses who own these assets actually end up taking a write-off? Now, none of it's going to be nice. It's going to be difficult, but the sooner we get on top of it, the better, because, as you say, this can't go on much longer. No,
exactly right, and particularly when we've got, in the fair income department, as we say, we've got, older Australians who haven't got much disposable income, as we hear about year after year after year, who go bloody cold in winter and all the rest of it because they can't afford to turn heaters on and things, and that's wrong. Just while you're there, Tony, because you're across all of this, I've got one of my listeners, Andrew, on the line with a question. Andrew, go ahead. We'll see if Tony can help us. Yeah, go ahead. What's your question?
Yeah, well, in Canada and USA, they pay 10 cents per kilowatt, and wholesale is 7 cents, and they're happy with retailing for 3 cents. They make in profit 3 cents. How come we pay 28 and 45? What is the goal?
Well,
I think you just really touched on that, Tony, didn't you, in relation to the regulator?
Well, part of it, the wholesale price in Australia is actually very low. The cost of producing the actual electricity at the coal-fired power stations or the gas-fired power stations is competitive with the comment Andrew that you just made. So that's the good part. And the retailers generally are not just much different. The real problem has been the level of cost we've incurred in the last little while in these networks, the transmission systems and the wires and poles that get the electricity to us. And that's largely been, we would say, almost not quite out of control, but it's certainly been far too high. And I've heard anecdotally that in some parts of the United States, they've actually started seeing a little bit of the same problem. That is because of economic growth, because of people using solar, etc., people using LED, same thing. They're starting to see a bit of the same. So they might start to go through some of the same problems we are, but for good, better or for worse, we're actually ahead of them in this race, which isn't a great race to be leading, I guess.
Interesting. Andrew, thank you for your call. Just one more there. We've got Maria on the line, Tony. Go ahead, Maria.
Oh, hello, Glenn. Look, my husband works for Ausgrid, and I'd just like to tell you a side of the story where they waste money.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, people that work with my husband have just completed a forklift and backhoe course, which has nothing to do with the job that they're doing. They've also had an ethics day where they have to learn how to be nice to each other. and the forklift course went for 4 days, and it was $70 per person each day. And they've also now, the latest thing now is if you want prescription sunglasses, you can go and get them.
Yeah, good on you, Marie. Well, I guess.
I'm not sure I want to touch that one.
No, I think we might leave that right there. But Maria, I guess the simple answer to that is that in all walks of life, I don't think it's peculiar to power companies. I think you'll find that we've got expenditure that goes on in most businesses around the place that sometimes you just stop and scratch your head and wonder and ask the question why. But thank you for your call, Maria. Nonetheless, Tony, thank you for your input. You are you're the full bottle on all of this. Good luck to you because you're a mile ahead of most of us. I think it is a complex issue, isn't it?
It certainly is, and if we can do anything to help people understand it better, then that's a good idea.
Yeah, good on you, mate. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Tony Wood, energy director there from the Grattan Institute. 22 minutes after 6. This is the 50 Up Club on 2GB 873. At this time of the year, of course, you're buying gifts for people at Christmas time and, of course, partying as well. And that's where De Bortley comes in because not just Christmas time, but any time of the year is a good time to enjoy a De Bortley wine. And if you are buying wine for people this Christmas and you're not too sure what to get, look, just go straight for the De Bortley. Take all the guesswork out of it. It is award-winning wine. They've been making wine since 1928. They've won a stack of awards, and it's good. It really is good, no matter whether you're talking reds, whites, bubblies, maybe a fabulous sticky, a botrytis, to enjoy with dessert. De Bortley, take all the guesswork out of buying good quality wine. Now, with the hot weather, start thinking about beautiful, tasty fruit like seedless watermelon. I had some today. It's a great thirst quencher too. What about salads? You can jazz up salads with some heirloom tomatoes at the moment, or even grape tomatoes. There's plenty of them in the market. And to add great flavour, chop up a bunch of coriander, mix it through, and there you are. A nice, simple, very tasty salad. Don't forget bananas too. Plenty of bananas around at the moment, and they are eating beautifully. Wonderful. Love a good banana. As promised last week, lychees have hit the markets as well, and the eating quality is absolutely fabulous. And all of this can be found, of course, at your local greengrocer. Your local greengrocer needing your support not only at Christmas time, but all round the year. Get your fresh fruit and veggies from your local greengrocer. Righto, 50upclub.com.au. We tell you about it each week, and with two special offers now live at 50upclub.com. Not AU. Why do I keep saying AU? It's just .com. Much easier, isn't it? 50upclub.com. Some members are actually saving hundreds of dollars on electricity and car insurance already. Now, we had Rosette from Revesby. She's taken up both offers this week and expects to save more than $400 a year. Jan from Toukley did the comparison. She reckons that she'll save $563 on power bills and car insurance this year. So don't worry about not happy, Jan. She's very happy, Jan. The 50 Up Club has unlocked big group discounts by harnessing the combined buying power of 45,000 of Australia's best consumers aged 50 and over. But the car insurance offer closes this Tuesday, December 17. So get a quote today. Don't miss out. If you're not a member yet, join now. You can still access the offers at 50upclub.com if you're in New South Wales. And for more details or to join, just log on, 50upclub.com. Joel Gibson is with the 50 Up Club group, and he's one of the gurus, in fact. I've asked him to join us tonight so we can have a chat to him about what's involved at switching our electricity. He's on the line. G'day, Joel.
G'day, Glenn. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure. We just had an interesting chat about electricity because it is rather complex to say the very least. And, there's a lot to it. It's fascinating to think that the average household has consumed 7% less power since 2006, and yet the average power bill has gone up by more than 85% over the same period. And we just discussed that with Tony Wood from the Grattan Institute. What's involved in switching? Now, I know you're across all of this. You understand what's involved in switching. What is involved from a consumer's perspective?
Well, yeah, Glenn, absolutely. I'll just explain to you, I suppose, a little bit. You would know, but your listeners may not. The background of the 50 Up Club is it's a joint initiative between the Consumer Network, One Big Switch, and Macquarie Radio. And One Big Switch really made our name in group switching campaigns in electricity in the last couple of years since the cost of electricity has soared. And I know you said 85% over 6 years is the national figure, but if you look at New South Wales, for example, it's more than doubled.
Oh, really?
So it's worse in some states than others. And it's really busting people's budgets, and even when it's not busting their budgets, it's really giving them a sense that they have no control over this, and there's no justice in it if you're cutting back your usage and the price is still going up. So we had this idea for a bold experiment a couple of years ago, and it was if we got enough people together, and we with a very large number of people, tens or hundreds of thousands of people, we went around to the retailers and negotiated a group discount. What could we do to cut the cost of electricity? And in the end, the big electricity switch last year, 250,000 households signed up around the country. And we achieved big discounts of up to 15, 16, even sort of 17% in some states, and tens of thousands of people took up that offer. So that is a bit of background for you, if you like, and that will explain to some of your listeners why the 50 Up Club now has such a good special offer live on electricity, which is the way that we've sourced it is in a way the same as the way that we sourced those offers, using the 45,000 odd members of the 50 Up Club and the buying power they possess.
So, as a member of the 50 Up Club, or anybody listening now who ends up joining the 50 Up Club, they can then take up the opportunity to switch to the deal that 50 Up Club have been able to pull together.
That's right. I mean, switching in electricity is still, I suppose, a relatively new phenomenon. And there are still some states in Australia where you can't switch retailers. You have no choice, and you've just got to pay the one retailer in your area. But in New South Wales, we're lucky enough to be able to choose now. And there's a whole range of retailers and plans on the market, and it's a matter of finding out, doing a bit of shopping around and finding out which one is the right one for you, of course, because there's no one size fits all. But for example, with the special offer we've got live on the 50 Up Club at the moment, there's a range of offers to suit different people. There's a 17% discount off your entire bill if you pay by direct debit. Mm-hmm. If you don't want to pay by direct debit, but you're still prepared to pay on time, you can get a 15% discount off your entire bill. And if you've got solar panels on
just keep that phone near your mouth, mate. It's giving us a funny sort of reception at the moment.
Sure, mate. Sorry.
There we go.
And if you're a solar customer, for example, you've got panels on your roof, you can get a 7% discount plus a bonus 10-cent feed-in tariff. So the thing is just to look around, decide what's right for you. If you're not a member yet of the 50 Up Club, I'd suggest you get on and join up. It's cost-free and obligation-free to join. You can have a look at these offers. Either switch to these ones, or if they're not right for you, use them to shop around. Maybe even get a better deal out of your current provider.
Okay, and is there any? Would we be locked in at the moment to our current provider? Is there any lock-ins at the moment?
Well, it all depends which plan you're on. So the beauty of these particular offers we've sourced is that there's no lock-in period and no exit fees. You can move whenever you want to if you're not happy or you see a better offer. But obviously, some plans do have exit fees. For example, myself, I'm on a 3-year plan which has exit fees. And so you just got to decide whether the amount you're going to save by switching is going to be more than the exit fee that you'd have to pay from your current provider. Yeah.
Okay, it's I find it a minefield because it's for people that have been so used to over many years just getting the electricity bill and it comes in and there was just one provider and that was it and you paid it and you moved on. Now, not only do you have a choice, but you get inundated with offers and people calling on your home phone or your mobile phone, putting deals to you, and from businesses you've never heard of in your life.
Well, that's right. And until recently, the big retailers were all doing door knocking too, which was driving people around the bend, you know. And that was, people were known to have been signed up to plans they didn't understand, and it is, as you say, a minefield. In a way, it's the best and the worst thing about choice is that sometimes choice can be absolutely befuddling and bewildering, and it does get that way a bit with electricity. That's partly why we do what we do. We do the shopping around for people, and a lot of our members are very grateful for it.
Okay, so the short answer to all of this is that if you want to take advantage of the deal that the 50 Up Club have put together, you need to be a member, 50upclub.com. What are we up to, about 45,000 plus members so far?
We are. We're nudging 45,000. I think we might tip over 45,000 this weekend, Glenn.
Fantastic. Good stuff. Mate, thank you for joining us tonight.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
Joel Gibson, 50upclub.com is the website. Hop on there, just punch your details in, really simple. Very easy, as Joel said. It's there's no invasion of privacy. Somebody said last week that called in, I'm a very private person. All you do is some very basic information about who you are and contact details, and you're in. Doesn't cost anything, and there's no compulsion there. If you don't want to take advantage of the deals, fine, don't take advantage of them. But safety in numbers, I think, is the objective here, and certainly 45,000 is nothing to sneeze at. There is a large group at 50 Up consumers out there, and we've all got plenty of spending power, and it's up to 50 Up Club to go out there and sort the deals, as Joel said. 26 to 7, this is the Clubhouse on a Saturday night here on 2GB.
Their customers have all the fun.
It's that time of the year when the pantry should be stocked up ready for those unexpected guests, and that's where Sandhurst Fine Foods can help. Now, whether it's the Sandhurst sun-dried tomatoes or the Kalamata olives or the beautiful sauces or maybe the char-grilled asparagus or eggplant, doesn't matter what it is, you need Sandhurst on hand to complete the perfect feast. Sandhurst Fine Foods. It's all about the Lebrano family and quality, great Aussie Italian tucker. They've been doing it for over 25 years. They're fabulous. All Sandhurst Fine Foods come with just one guarantee, and that's the most important one. It's the Lebrano family seal of approval. Simple as that. Grab some next time you're at the supermarket or local fruit and veggie store. There's always Sandhurst olives in our pantry, I can assure you. Easy, delicious Sandhurst. 24 to 7 on this Saturday night. Nice to have your company. We'll be here through until midnight. Bloomy will join us after 7 o'clock in my kitchen, and then Wheeler, of course, from 8 till midnight. I'm guessing that it was probably another busy day out there, even though it's getting awfully close to Christmas in the real estate scene. Let's have a chat to Damien Cooley from Cooley Auctions. He's on the line. G'day, Damo.
Hey, Glenn. How are things?
Yeah, good. Still, the heat's still on?
Heat's still on, mate. In fact, it felt like it was even just warming up that little bit more today.
So last week when we spoke, today was looking like it was going to break a record in terms of the number of auctions that were registered, that were listed.
That's it. Booked for auction today, yeah. Look, today was the biggest day that Sydney's ever had. It seems like that we're just saying the same thing every week, the biggest day. But today was the biggest day, and it is official. It will be the biggest day of 2013 because next week is Saturday the 21st of December, and it's going to be nothing like the numbers that we had today. But there were almost 1,000 properties that went to auction today, and we're actually still got one being auctioned as we speak. So we've got one to go, and at the moment we're sitting on a 70% clearance rate. We've sold 81 out of 116 so far.
That's a lot, isn't it, eh? Gee whiz. So 1,000 auctions across Sydney in one day.
Yeah, and that's the biggest day that Sydney's ever seen.
That's a lot of transactions. So up until today, what was the record? Where did it stand?
Well, what we saw in the weeks, in fact, early in December, we saw a 902 properties go to auction. Today we've seen about 970-odd properties go to auction, or 975 or thereabouts. So it's definitely a big increase. And to give you an idea, same time last year, the numbers were basically half this. So the volume of property that's on the market at the moment, particularly the volume of property that's going to auction, naturally has substantially increased with the confidence of the buyers out there.
Mm. And you've done, you've done about 100 auctions today, Coolies?
Yeah, we've got 117 auctions today. We've, as I said, we've got one auction that's just being auctioned as we speak. So I'm just waiting on that result to come through.
70% clearance rate's pretty impressive as well. Are you finding that, and today specifically, you're finding that there are any properties in amongst that 100 that you've put under the hammer today that have only had very short marketing campaigns? We spoke about this the other week.